group that we have together, like
Yeah.
it covers the gamut of everything that anybody could possibly want, whether it be, like you said, adversity, leadership, personal development, business, all these things that we're doing, AI, all this stuff that's going on now.
Yeah.
So by coming to this, to Carrie Marabal's platform, to the
Yeah.
Speaker Bureau, it's a one-stop shop. You get everything that you need and probably even more. So
You know, and she's all heart. She's all heart. This is what I
absolutely,
love. She's 100% authentic. What you see is what you get with her.
love it.
And she takes you along that journey. And so, big shout out to her. Lots and
Yeah,
lots of love to
love,
Carrie for sure.
love Carrie. Would do anything for Carrie. So, you made a comment about why adversity is my platform. I didn't really choose adversity; it chose me.
Ah,
And as so often is the case, adversity is the part of the human condition. My first book is called The Gift of Adversity. My TEDx talk, my first TEDx talk from 2017, is called The Gift of Adversity as well. And for those of you that are not familiar, in a nutshell, in 2012, when I was preparing to deploy with the light infantry with 10th Mountain, I ruptured a disc in my neck. It paralyzed me from the
mm,
neck down. They told me I'd never walk or use my hands again. And then I turned 40 years old in the hospital. So all those things were happening, and it was a very big punch in the face.
yeah.
And this is why adversity shows up at the most inopportune time without apology. It couldn't care less about what you want. It doesn't give a damn about your feelings, and it doesn't take no for an answer.
Mm,
So going through that hardship, going through months of suicidal depression, but I couldn't even act on it because of my paralysis, forced me to step back, look at my life, look at where I was, and then I understood that I was here because of adversity, or more about the idea that of how I conditioned myself and responded to
uh,
adversity leading up to it.
the gift of adversity. Right. Right. So now, what does that look like for you these days? You wrote a book, you do speaking, you do one-on-one coaching too, don't you?
I do coaching for companies, for CEOs, for leaders, for their C-suite executives, and what I found was I wrote the book, and I just like anything, right? We write the book, we just bleed onto the page. This is what happened. This is where I'm at. And I found a lot of first responders, soldiers, but I also found single moms, people that
Mm,
were in business, people that had lost their
mm,
jobs, people that were being kicked out of a job that they'd been in for a long time and saying,
yeah.
hey, go rediscover yourself or reinvent yourself. And they're like, well, I was going to be with this company for the duration. And the companies said, sorry, we're not doing that now.
Wow.
So the beauty of adversity is it forces you to take a good hard look of who you are. It makes you get rid of all the BS, all those excuses,
Mm,
all the masks that you have. Because once you're under adversity long enough, you're too tired to put up facades.
ah,
You let all the superfluous stuff go, and you say, "This is where I'm at," and then you
yeah.
look at all of the parts of us, warts and all, that are not perfect, and we say, "Okay, this is where I'm at.
Mm.
Where do I want to go? And then what am I willing to change about myself to get there?"
You make it sound so simple in the way that you break it down.
A lot of practice.
But as somebody with a lot of warts, like,
Same.
what's that process look like? Because for somebody like, we're talking about high performers, right? We're talking
Absolutely.
about people who live excellence. You don't become CEO, you don't become in the C-suite just because you don't just wake up that way, right? Lots of training if you're a first responder, if you're in the military, those kinds of things. Now, when that breaks you,
Hmm.
what's that messy process? How do you guide somebody through that, Marcus? Because I've like that's the real work right there, the shadow work. Because
Right.
then on top of that, the next level after you break through that part, which I mean, I imagine can take months for some people, years even in
Years.
rehabilitation.
Right.
It's the willingness to move on then as well, that next step after that. So tell me about like the breakdown part of it. Doesn't that scare you? Like you got high performers. I mean, you've got people who are making seven figures, eight figures. You got people who are trained, who are highly trained, highly skilled, and now you're telling them everything you ever knew is gone, and this is the rebuilding phase. You got to accept the warts and all. What does that look like?
Yeah, the truth is the person that we are the most qualified to help is the person that we used to be.
Mm,
So when I see this high performer, when I see this CEO, when I see this person that's making all this money, or if you look on
yeah.
paper, they're checking all the boxes and it's like happy, check, kids, check, this, check. And then it's like, why the hell am I so unfulfilled? Why do I
Yeah.
still feel this like feeling this ominous idea, just this cloak of depression? And again, you were talking about, well, we have to do the work. Well, Kubler Ross talks about 5 stages of acceptance of any sort of grief:
Okay.
denial, anger, bargaining, depression, and then acceptance. And as you were saying, it sounds simple, but those steps, we will go through microcosms of denial to anger back into a smaller cycle of denial and anger staying in there, then from anger to depression. But we'll try to skip the bargaining component. So eventually we get to a place, and again, you have a high performer. What do we see? I don't want to say typical, but a very common scenario. You have a 40 some odd year old founder, co founder, male or female, that has just been pushing and
Yeah.
driving, and they're
Yeah.
building this thing.
And they're rewarded for that behavior
They
for
are
for a long time, right?
for a long
You
time.
you've gone through the investors, you've got the funding, you've raised $10
Yes.
million in
Yes.
support.
You've got all the seed money in the world. You've gone through all of your like different phases. Things are going well. All the stakeholders are happy. All the people that you're serving are happy, but you're not happy.
Mm,
And you don't know why, because
mm,
according to all the metrics that everybody else has, this should be enough. And then your spouse is a stranger. And if you have kids, maybe they are very distant.
mm-hmm.
And so, this very thing that you were so good at that rewards you, this performer that you are, gets this feeling of resentment because I'm doing all this for my family, I claim, but I'm not. I'm doing it for my own ego. And then,
Uh,
so what happens? They will do one of two things. They will either drive on harder, hoping that that will somehow change it, which
it's just
honestly,
not sustainable.
no, it's
Yeah.
not sustainable. And
Yeah.
this is what happens when it's no longer sustainable and that's your identity, and now you cannot perform that. That's the only thing you've had. And when that's
Yeah.
taken from you, or when the board turns against you, or when you get kicked out of your own company that you
Yeah.
built, now you're like, what do I have left? Well, again, these relationships are the things we should be working towards. However, if we haven't done that, then now it feels very empty, very hollow.
Mm, right.
And it's
Right.
a
Right.
situation where no matter what we do, it feels like we lose. Or they go the other direction where they try to sacrifice the thing that means so much to them in an effort to make it worthy of the sacrifice. Meaning
Mm,
they give up their health,
mm,
they give up their mental health. These relationships are becoming very vapid, and now they, again, even though they're at the top of the mountain, they feel
yeah.
alone. They feel like other people don't listen to them or understand them. I have a CEO that is divorced. He's worth a lot of money, and now he says, I'm starting over. And now he has to be aware that this person may be talking to him not because of who he is as a
Uh,
person, but because of what his net worth is, or
oh, right.
what his EBITDA looks like online.
So it's a different way of relating to people,
Absolutely.
a different way of connecting with people. So then what kind of skills do you teach in getting a person like that to now, have a relationship first with themselves,
Right.
right? And then new relationships with other people, authentic relationships with other people, where you're connecting in ways that aren't, hey, check out my pitch deck, look at my qualifications, look at the
Right.
companies I exited, I sold, how many employees I managed. What's that process like? How do you teach people to relate differently to themselves, and then that new identity going out in the world to have positive relationships?
Yeah, usually there's some sort of breakdown. There's some sort of punch in the face by adversity that makes them look. It can be, again, a loss of some capacity. Sometimes it's a loss of a friend, a loss of a
Mm,
family member.
mm,
And the thing that happens is when those things happen and they make us stop,
yeah.
all the stuff that we know to be true comes rushing back. So all these things that feel like cliches. And I say this because whether people want to admit it or not, everybody loves cliches.
Mm,
A cliche is something that everybody knows to be true, but they think is too simple, too easy, or doesn't apply to them. But the truth is, it's not. It does, and it will always apply to them.
mm,
And the only time they really understand how powerful that cliche is right after it happens to them.
Yeah.
And then they say, wow, family's important. Wow, without my health, nothing else matters.
Mm,
Wow, I would burn this company to the ground if it would allow me the opportunity to start from ground zero with these things.
mm.
So we can have that understanding and that realization now, but very few times do we do it because most of the time, well, that doesn't apply to me.
Ah,
When I joined the military, I thought, well, other people get injured because you know there is the potential of that happening.
sure,
And
sure,
you see movies and you read books about it, and while it's compelling, you're like, yeah, but that happens to other people.
sure.
It happens to us every day.
Now let's talk about that. How long did it take for you to recover? You know, and what did that process look like in that timeline? Did you go through your own, you know, 5 stage grief,
Mhm.
denial, you know, bargaining, all how did that look for you as you recovered? Because you know, we teach best what we need to learn, right?
Right.
That's what we hear. So clearly, you know, you've been through it. And this is why you're so successful today in leading other people. So how did you dig in and reinvent yourself in that way and find the adversity as a gift?
Yeah, it was a horrible, messy, convoluted, unskillful process. I went
Yeah.
through, again, going back and forth between all these things because I felt like a victim.
Uh,
Why is the universe, why is God doing this to me? This isn't what
yeah.
I signed up for. I'm a good
Yeah.
person. All these other people are getting away with murder. I'm trying to do the right thing. Why
Yeah.
is this happening? And eventually you just have to get to a point where you just say, listen, the only meaning that adversity has is the meaning that you assign it.
Ah.
Period. So if I assign this adversity, this thing that's crushing me as this burden, this plague that I will never get beyond, guess what? I won't. And what I did was I was able to take myself out of the equation. And Zen, they say it's not about you, it's still on you. If I take myself out of the equation, it gives me the ability to see things very transparently for what they are without expectation, without prejudice, without hopes or dreams that it will change. When I see that
Mm,
reality for me, I eventually got to the point where I just said, you know what? For 4 months, I did everything that I could. And then eventually I just accepted it unconditionally and said, this is what it is.
yeah.
I don't have to like it, but I have to accept it.
Ah.
I also found something else. So for every one man that is injured in combat, it takes two men to pull him to safety.
Ah.
They kept pushing our deployment back, which is a blessing now that I understand, because I believe that my injury would have happened no matter where I was in the world, whether I was in Afghanistan, in upstate New York, in Italy, preparing to deploy, whatever it is. And if we'd have been outside the wire in combat, in a red zone after that, that
Yeah.
means my team would have been compromised because I was just given a team at that point. I was a team leader.
Ah.
And that means all of my guys would have been in harm's way. That means
Mm,
the helicopter, which is a big target if you've seen any movie, would be in harm's way. And for me, I was like, wow, gratitude is real and it has to be like
yeah.
this. The way I looked at it was this. Gratitude means you can be very happy and thankful that something happened, even if it does not help you in the least.
Mm.
So for me,
Wow.
so for
Powerful message.
Thanks. Yes.
Powerful.
So I was just grateful that nobody else was injured. And when I
Right.
had that, and I was able to step back and say, wow, I'm lucky. Not that I'm lucky, but that nobody else was hurt. That's when I had the first, in my experience, I think in my life, the first ability to have this 360, no BS gratitude.
Yeah.
Because once that's the cornerstone, because most people do what? They cherry pick the stuff that they like. They're grateful for, they make a list of the stuff they're grateful for. And it's like, oh, my family, my health, my success, my car, my houses, whatever. Those are just sort of a Christmas list that a child makes. If you can look at the adversity that you're facing right now and say, I'm grateful for this because now it shines a light on my weakness. Now it forces me
Right.
to take a look at what's going on. It's this mirror that makes me look unflinchingly at all of these weaknesses, all these things that I need to get better at.
Mm,
And if we have the ability to just look at it, because that's the first step, all leadership begins with self leadership. So we talk about, again, CEOs and leaders. If I have shadow components, if I have an area that is weak, I will
yeah.
project that into my business. And now what? That incongruency, that weakness is scaled in my business 10x.
Right. Right.
So a lot of times, if I have a bad relationship with money, that's going to affect the kind of I don't know, CFO I have, or the kind of marketing
Right.
people I have, or the
Right.
salespeople that I have. And then I had the audacity to be surprised when I'm butting heads with these people, right? It's like, well, these people are cutthroat, they just care about money. It's like, well, wait a minute. Who hired them?
Yeah, that's right.
And we see it all the time, and we laugh about it because we're on the outside, because we're detached. But
I worked with them before. The audacity to
all
be
day,
surprised is such a great way to put it.
it's the
That's
truth.
exactly it.
Absolutely.
Yeah, yeah. And so, you know, I mean, you got to be able to just get in there with them
Mhm.
and write it out with people and understand what's what kind of phrases, what kind of language do you use as you're coaching people through that? Because like you said, it's months.
Yep.
It's months of recovery, of shifting that perspective of once you accept, all right, this is what I got, be grateful for the adversity and the gift of it. What kind of phrasing and language do you, because I know with a lot of my clients, I find myself repeating certain things
Mhm.
as I'm guiding them through things, because we're all human, like you said, we all have these human conditions.
Oh, yeah.
I just laugh so much because you said when they have the audacity to be surprised when it's like, well, we've been working on this for the last few months. Like you knew this was an issue.
Right. Yeah. A lot of the verbiage I try to use is empowering. It's not disempowering. Um, my podcast is called Acta non verba. This up here, it's Latin for actions, not words.
Mm,
So often is the case, we will see if we want to know what somebody truly believes,
yeah.
we observe their actions, and that includes us. So if I'm claiming that I want this thing, but then my actions are over here, these are incongruent, and this is the indication to me that either I'm claiming something that I don't want, or I'm not acting towards something that makes sense to me. The idea is to get people to be very honest, and you made that comment that it was simple. It has to be simple. Many times I feel people are in this place where they're trying to continually acquire knowledge. But the truth is, knowledge that is acquired but unutilized is the equivalent of ignorance.
Yeah.
Why
Yeah.
are people in such a hurry to read the newest book or the newest podcast or whatever it is?
Yeah.
They probably already have a litany of things that they're like, yeah, I want to start applying that. So then we get to that point and say, listen, we accept adversity the way it is. We get through the 5 stages. And for me, when I accepted those 5 stages and had the no BS gratitude, 2 months after that, I started getting feeling back in my hands and my feet. Now it
Mm,
took a year and a half of physical and occupational therapy to get to the place where I could eventually recover. But once
yeah.
I had that breakthrough, that cornerstone, I could build on it, and that gave me the ability to move forward. But
Yeah.
it's still the rebuilding process. So now we have to ask ourselves, what do I really want? What is it that I want? And we can be as honest. We need to be as honest as we possibly can about that. And for most
Mm,
people, it covers something that's going to be economically, stimulated. It's going to be something about personal development. It's going to be something about families. But for a lot of people, they may just want peace.
mm.
What if their next step was to just rest?
Ah,
And these are the things
that's
that give
like
us clarity.
terror for somebody who's been a top performer, who's spent their entire lives, 40 years, cream of the crop, right? The best of the best. And you mean rest is an option? What does that look like?
Yeah,
How do I
exactly.
rest? How do I have peace? How do I and maybe even reinventing how you work so that maybe you stand up and you work for 2 hours a week, you earn your money, and you're peaceful and calm and you garden the rest of your
Absolutely.
days. Like what's that like? Is that possible? And people can do it. They,
Absolutely.
yeah.
Yeah,
Wow.
the day architecture that we create, if we're able to do that, or even if we're working for somebody else in a 8 to 5 capacity, we still own the time from 5 a.m. to 7:45.
Mhm.
We still own the time from 5 p.m. until we decide to go to sleep. So
Mhm.
this idea that, well, I work for somebody or I'm doing these other things, those things are fine. But you can absolutely have agency in anything that you decide is a priority. But if we allow other people to make the priorities for us, lots of
Mm.
times it's not going to have our best interest at heart. And that's
And
just
then
the
and
reality.
that's where that disempowerment comes from, like
Exactly.
you were saying, right? The disempowerment. Nobody wants to feel that when it's just such a disheartening way to live, right? When you're feeling
Yeah, it's unfulfilling. And I've had a bunch of people on my podcast that have gone through tremendous adversity, people that have been
Mm,
through a lot of things,
mm,
horrible things. But
mm.
every single one of them, when you talk to them, none of them ever use a victim sort of mentality because they've had their power or their identity ripped them from them. And so the last thing they ever want to do is embody this victimhood mentality. Even after it's happened to them, they say, I'm strong. They say, I don't want to go back to that. They don't say, I'm
Yeah.
a victim. They say, this happened to me, but that doesn't make me a victim to it. They choose to see it as this thing. Adversity is a catalyst that will make us better if we're willing to accept it. And sometimes when there's no other choice, the choice is simple.
Huh. Yeah. Right. It's all you've got. The only
Yeah.
way from here is up at that point. I really like what you said also. You're reframing it and taking it out as though it's you and in your identity. You said adversity is on me. It's not in me. It's not me. It's not
Right.
who I am. It almost it really gives you that perspective then when you use that kind of a language, because now you're saying it's just something that I'm going through, that's happening to me,
Yes.
that's on me right now, and it'll be off of me again another time. Maybe it'll be on me again, but it'll be off, and I am the person, the individual. It's separate from that,
Right.
right? So it's not taking that on as your identity. That's I
Yeah.
feel like that's where the victimhood comes from. Is that kind of what your feeling is too?
It is. And then the problem with victimhood is it's a very intoxicating cycle
Mm,
because victimhood allows me to talk a lot and not take any ownership or responsibility of my actions.
yeah.
And then once that becomes who we are, now we become victimized by everything that we see on social media, everything somebody else does. Something that I don't agree with is now trauma instead of me actually being able to take ownership of, okay, how am I choosing to respond to this?
Yeah.
Do I even need to see this?
Right.
We were talking about adversity, this idea we may have adversity in our life, but that does not mean that adversity has me. I
Mm,
choose how I want to respond to it. And there's three ways that I frame it. So there's the way that some people look at it, like the motivational clips they see on social media, and it's this thing that is the catalyst that makes us better. But if we are already disempowered or tired or we've been knocked down, it's hard for us to have that because lots of times that motivation is artificial and
mm.
transient at best,
It takes energy to
just
get
to get to
there.
that point.
And when
Absolutely.
you're already low on energy, it's really hard.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
hard to elevate it. The second way is, again, it just feels like this thing that is oppressive. It feels like this weight that we're never going to be able to get through and it keeps us down. But the third way is what I would recommend to everybody, which is this: be aware of the adversity. Don't act like it's not there. Be cognizant of it, but then also say, you know what? It's irrelevant to what I want to do. I will circumvent it if necessary. I live in Oklahoma where there's a lot of tornadoes this time of year, right? So I'm very aware of what's going on, but I don't let it define my life. I don't let it
Mm,
change what I want to do. I don't live in fear, hoping that something or fearing that something may come and get me. I've got all the steps, I've got all the shelters, I need everything that I need to do,
uh-huh.
but until something happens where I have to do that, I will live my life without fear, without allowing it to encroach or inhibit my capacity to do what I need to do.
Yeah.
So we can know that it's
Yeah.
there, but we can continue to walk past and say, you're irrelevant to what I want to get done.
Oh, such good words. Very, very empowering. I love that. So tell us again, Marcus. Gosh, we've already been talking for like 25 minutes.
Oh,
It's
okay.
the time just goes by so quickly. Tell us again, what's the name of your podcast? And if people want to connect with you, what's your website? How what's the best way to connect with you?
Sure. So Octo Non Verba is the name of the podcast. I've been doing it for 5 years, 250 episodes. Robert Greene, Stephen Pressfield, a lot of amazing people on there. The first book is called The Gift of Adversity. TEDx is called The Gift of Adversity. The new book that I'm about to release, Octo Non Verba, the apparel I'm about to release is Octo Non Verba. Uh, they
Excellent.
can they can follow me on LinkedIn. They can reach out to me on Instagram, and then my website is marcusaureliusanderson.com or octononverbapodcast.com. But if you can find me kind of anywhere that if you look hard enough. So
Excellent, excellent. So what are some things you got coming up, like down the pipeline? You're excited. You got a new book coming. Okay.
new
You're
books
going to
coming.
continue with your podcast. Of course, we're rocking with Carrie Mirabal,
Oh
right?
yeah,
Yeah. So
absolutely.
so we're rolling with wherever she sends us, which is great. What
Mhm.
else do you have coming down? What are you looking forward to?
I mean, we just got back from Italy a couple of weeks ago, and then I was in Mexico
Mm,
last week working with a client for a 6 day intensive. So that was incredible. So love doing those things, and then the apparel, the t-shirts, the hats, and all that stuff. I'm going to release that in tandem with the new podcast. I mean, the new
okay.
book, and that will give
Uh-huh.
us the ability to create that multi-pronged effect. And so all
Yeah.
those things will lead back to. I'm very much the kind of person that wants to give what we're doing here, right? We want to give quality. We're not trying to provide value, because if you want value, go to a value menu at like McDonald's, right? That's not
Oh,
what we're
right,
trying to
right,
do.
right.
We're
It's a
trying
good
to
way to
give something.
it's
We're
a good
trying to
way to
give,
put that.
and a
Yeah.
lot of people will provide value, but it's kind of trite. I want it to be something significant, and if what we've talked about makes sense to you, or if it resonates with you, then it will naturally lead people towards all these things we've talked about, and that's the
Yeah.
goal: is to help them win, to help them be empowered.
Uh-huh.
The book is an easy way for them to kind of figure out some more of these steps. The second book, Octa Nonverbal, will take a lot of what I did in this first book, or a lot of what we described, and then I spoke about this for 7 years now, all over the world, top
Mhm.
people all over the world. So
Mhm.
after we've done something long enough on that subject, we get asked the Q&A, right? That's where the real value is, the real quality,
Yeah.
because they're like, how did you do this? How did this happen? What'd you do here? And so now I can give some of that wisdom in a way that's succinct and consistent,
Mhm.
that they can
Mhm.
apply efficiently, in
Mhm.
addition to giving additional components of all these ideas for us. Because what happens in our internal narrative, we have a lot of confirmation or cognitive biases that we may or may not be aware of. We have our own ego, we have our own expectations, our own shadow. And to be blind to these things mean we are going to get blindsided by them
Yeah.
over and over again.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. That's true. You're just
Absolutely.
repeating those same patterns. Yeah, makes
Yeah.
sense.
There's only
Makes
only
sense.
only two ways to deal with adversity: correctly or again.
Oh,
That's it.
it's funny.
That's
That's
it.
how we say it in our house too, in the House of Harris with our chores, with our children. They're always like, "Oh, why do I get it?" Well, hey, you know what? There's two ways to do your chores. You could do it right, or you can do it again.
Yeah.
It's
Until
up
you get it
to
right.
you. It's
Absolutely.
great. All right, before we leave, I have one last question. One last question. I have never been to Italy. I've never been to Italy
Oh,
before.
you have to.
So, tell me your favorite food in Italy, because every time people come back from Italy, they're like, "Oh, I love Italy. I love
Hmm.
the food." And I'm like, "Okay, yeah, great. Like they have food everywhere. Like, okay, I love Mexico. They have great food. I go to Greece. I love their food. But there's something about the food in Italy, and I don't know what
Yeah.
it is because every single person I talk to who comes back from Italy is like, the food. So,
Yeah.
what's your
Yeah.
favorite food in Italy?
You're gonna laugh at me because normally I'm a carnivore guy. Normally I'm low carb, but when my wife and I went to Italy, I was like, I don't know how often we're gonna do this, so I'm gonna go crazy and eat everywhere I want. The thing that I love the most in Italy, and it's not because I'm a carnivore guy, was when we were in Florence. They have a steak Florenza, that's what they call it,
Huh?
and the steak over there was just succulent. It melted in your
Mm,
mouth. It was like butter. That was
yeah.
amazing. But again, cappuccinos, gelato. Anytime you're having any kind of pasta, it's going to be tremendous. But again, remember over there, it's easier on the body than say American processed food. So again,
Uh,
plus you're also walking what 30,000 steps. So we were in Rome, we were in Florence, we were in Pompeii, and then we
whew.
did the last part in the Amalfi Coast. So you're just really trying to get that entire fast pace from Rome. Florence is a little bit less fast paced.
Uh-huh.
Seeing what happened in Pompeii gives you a lot of reflection, and then being at the Amalfi Coast, you just kind of enjoy
Yeah.
the beauty
I've
of it. So
always wanted to visit the Amalfi Coast. I've been to a few places in the Mediterranean. The Mediterranean, I just feel like speaks to my heart, but I've
yeah,
never been to the Amalfi Coast. I've seen so many pictures.
you have to. It's a moral imperative.
Mm, excellent. Love it. Hey, listen, you have a wonderful day. I
You
really
as well.
appreciate you taking the
Appreciate you.
time and just sharing your wisdom and the quality of conversation and the things that you've overcome. I mean, it's just so inspiring to listen to you speak. It's like you have the experience, you've walked the walk, and you can really recognize that in somebody who talks the talk, right? Versus somebody who's just out here going, hey, like you said, here's some value, here's some blog posts, so here's some
Yeah.
social media posts that some AI helped me generate, and go out there and do your best, right? It's very obvious that you've come through so much, and that you do share that gift of helping people overcome their own demons, and sharing. So thanks again, Marcus. I really appreciate your time today. Thank
For
you.
having me.
Excellent. All right. We'll talk again soon, friend. I'll see you
Absolutely.
later.
See you.
Okay. Yeah. Bye-bye. Cool. So that